Hi, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today I have as my special guest Noel Heideman, who is an associate broker and realtor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on the program today because I've seen you around town for many, many years, and I had the golden opportunity to come across you on Facebook, and that's how we first met. So I'm so excited to talk to you about what you do and dive a little bit more into your background and talk a little real estate. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name's Noel Heideman. I work for Maxbrook Realtors. I'm an associate broker. I've been in the real estate business for 29 years. Love it. Never worked a day in my life. Enjoy what I do, and really happy to be here talking with you.
And I love hearing people say they love what they do because so many people don't have that opportunity, and I'm so glad that you're doing something that you love, and we're going to start talking a little bit about that. But I want to take a little journey back to your youth. Sure. And ask you, when you were growing up, you grew up here in Michigan, right? Was there anything in your youth that really kind of precipitated you kind of getting into this entrepreneurial area? Because real estate is very entrepreneurial in many, many ways.
When I was young, I was into a lot of sports, but I did a lot of individual sports. My parents gave me the opportunity to get into a lot of different sports and a lot of different things that a lot of people didn't get into. Team sports I played a little bit of, but I've always just been interested in doing my own thing. It's just kind of creating my own path and being basically somebody that determines his own future. And I've always enjoyed that. There's a lot of freedom to it. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of heartache. There's a lot of ups and downs. But that's life in general. So.
Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family?
My father was a school teacher, and my mom worked. My father retired from teaching and then started his own construction company. My mom's now a well-known interior designer. Interiors by Homes is her company, and so my parents have always been a bit independent as well. So I learned very early on in life that I probably would do something that would be more on the independent side. And from there, it's been not a day of work in my life. So it's been
beautiful. I was kind of wondering about that because, a lot of times I see these little themes running through people's lives. So your parents really do have that entrepreneurial spirit, and that was
they do.
It's in the DNA.
And it started back when I was younger, and then it just kind of had grown with me. And then after going into school and deciding I studied economics and accounting was my major. Once I got through with that, I really realized that I couldn't sit behind a desk for 8-10 hours a day. I needed to be out. I love talking with people. I love meeting new people. Every circumstance that I deal with business, everybody's different. So everybody's motivations are different. And I really, truly enjoy that. And meeting different people. Everybody, every circumstance is unique, which I really enjoy.
Keeps it exciting.
It does. It does. It's always something new. And what I found too is that over the course of being in my business as long as I have, even the people that I work with for a second, maybe even a third time, it's not always the same experience because things happen and change in your lives. So I've just really enjoyed it a lot.
So how did you come about choosing a major of accounting and economics? And I love them both because a couple of my degrees are in accounting, and I love economics. But how did you choose those? Because that has a lot to do sometimes with where we end up going in life, and what we end up doing is that major can really have a major impact on us.
Basically, before I went to college, I went to Western Michigan University, and before I went to school, I had talked to some professors both in high school and in college. And I knew I was going to do business, so I decided to take the route of accounting. I did have some interest in finance and really not much in marketing, but at the time in management. But I took the route of accounting. I even picked up economics too because I really enjoyed that. I was through with those my junior year, and everything with real estate started with me actually after my sophomore year. I had a fraternity brother who was graduating. And I've known him for quite a while, even before college. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in being an assistant for, her name is Judy, at Chuck Jakely Realty, and it's in Portage, which is a neighboring city of Kalamazoo." And I said, sure. And he's like, yeah, you know, she's going to pay you this, and it's cash, and she's super cool.
It's cash.
So yeah, so as a college kid, you know, that was, you know, it was 20 hours a week, and I think back then I was
Wow.
making $10 an hour cash. So I had
Wow.
$200 a week.
That's great.
Which was
That's
a lot of money.
yeah.
This was back in like 1991, 92.
That's great.
So, and what I didn't realize at the time was how much I loved it. Judy had this incredible, engaging personality where I don't think I ever ran into anybody that didn't like her. So her personality was not like mine, just really loved dealing with people. So being around her kind of got me more and more and more interested in it. I mean, I would go to open houses on a Sunday afternoon with her, or even back then, even hold one open, which was really unique for a college student after a Saturday night of doing what college students do, and then going into these open houses, and I really, really enjoyed it. I got to know quite a few people around the office.
And it's easier for people to approach you too, because you're younger and they know, they know that.
It was very,
It's
you know,
like-
you're kind of wet behind the ears, but you pick it up well. And I think it's just a matter of, I knew immediately that I had a love for this.
That is so cool.
It really,
That is so
you know,
neat.
and it's made my career very fulfilling. I mean, every single day it's something different.
So were you working for her those last 2 years of
I
college?
worked for her the last 2 years of college, and then I graduated. I had a very good friend of mine that I'd met in school that her mom was a manager in Birmingham, and her name is Carol. And so I met with Carol after I graduated. I got my real estate license the summer of 1993, and met with Carol and had met with a couple other managers and decided to hire on at Century 21 Town and Country. At the time, we were at Lincoln and Adams for a couple months, and then moved to the old Chudix building, which is off of Brown Street, just west of Old Woodward. Started there, had some incredible training, which unfortunately not many people get as much these days, but I was really fortunate.
Yeah.
Had a great broker, worked for that company for 11 years, and then moved to Max Brook, and I've been with Max Brook for 18 years and love it.
When you were with Judy, your mentor,
Yes,
original
yeah.
mentor,
Yes.
what part besides open houses was she also involving you in the transactions? Were you seeing everything that was going on behind the scenes? Were you
Yeah,
getting
a lot of you know, some computer work. Back then, real estate has changed a lot.
Yeah.
You know, when I first got into the business, we basically had Rolodex cards.
Right.
Little 3x5. And then that changed, you know, to basically 8.5x14, just huge books.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the computers obviously slowly but surely came into play. So I was learning a lot of different angles and doing a lot of different deep research for her, but also really on my own too, because I really enjoyed it. So it taught me how to do a little bit more, and younger people these days don't understand that there are Rolodexes in the way you do search information in a library versus just going to Google now.
Yeah.
So it made me dig a little bit deeper into
It's kind of neat to
knowing
grow
things.
up with it that way,
It
though,
is.
because you've kind of seen the whole arc of, development in the real estate industry.
It makes me feel kind of old at times when I hearken back to the Rolodex days and those of us that remember those things.
And you really want them when your computer doesn't work
yeah,
and you still
really
need
do.
the information.
You know, it's something that it's something that you can lean on.
I have some written down information now because of situations
Yeah.
that have happened with lack of power, and got to be prepared.
Some of the early things that I learned in my life, that I have a kind of like a little Bible, so to speak, and it's just a notebook that I take notes on everybody that I talk to and what's going on. So that's kind of spun off, I think, from when I originally got into the business and learning from those Rolodex cards and taking notes.
Are you still hand
I
taking?
do.
You do.
Yeah.
Have you kept all your old notebooks?
No, you know what? I haven't. Like a lot of old files and things. I mean, we have everything that's stored now for the files with my company. But no, I haven't kept a lot. I probably have the last few years. But you go through so many of them that's I don't have places to keep them. So it would be interesting though to have like one of the original ones.
Yeah,
That would be really kind of
you've
cool.
had to have dealt with thousands and thousands.
Well, you deal with a
of
lot
people.
of people, and that's the tough part too, is keeping up with everybody. I think in
And
our
the chain
business,
of everybody. I mean, you have attorneys, you have people at the banks, you
It's-
have
yeah.
so many people you have to know and deal with, and
I think with my job, I've been lucky enough to be introduced to some really good people. And for example, John Cole with Capital Mortgage Funding is a guy that I've been working with for 27 years.
Oh my
Him
gosh.
and I are just, we're two peas in a pod. We're very similar in age. We started in a transaction, with a mutual client, and just really hit it off and realized that we treat people and do our businesses very much the same way. I look at people as people. I enjoy the experience of helping them find something, whether we're selling something or we're buying something. It's always a unique experience. And I truly enjoy getting that experience out of what I do for a living. It's not about money, it's about getting to know people and their experiences and making you a better person and deeper person and more thoughtful and, respectful of others. And so it's been a very good working relationship with John, but I have numerous people like that, throughout the years that I've really cherry-picked information from and ideas and the way people go about doing their business and the way people handle people. It's important. With this day and age and so many things happening that are negative in this world, it's nice to go back knowing that I go to sleep at night with a big smile on my face because I try to treat people the way I want to be treated, with respect, with care, and I try to look after their best needs, whether they know it or not. That's what I try to do.
yeah, and you're helping them with like the most
biggest
important
purchase in
thing,
life.
the most important, biggest purchase, but also it has to do with their family. This is the core of
Yeah.
people. This is their most precious, sometimes their most precious thing is their home because that's where all the memories are going to be made. I mean, it's exciting to be part of that important part of somebody's life.
It's a very, very serious decision that people make, but it doesn't have to be serious in nature in regard to how you go about doing it.
But it's important.
It's kind of like you get up in the morning and you put your shoes on and your pants on and your jacket and you walk out the door and you grab your keys and your coffee. It's very similar to that when you're selling a house or when you're purchasing a house. If you break it down into simplicities, you listen to people, that's huge.
People desperately need that.
Well,
nowadays,
and it's
you know?
understanding. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing that I
bet
try
a lot
to
of
do,
people tell you a lot of stories because you have to listen to understand
Yeah.
them, and I bet you almost become. I'm sure it's happened to you, almost like a therapist.
you are.
I bet you that's happened.
You can read. I think I've read this somewhere. You can read people and who are decision makers in about 7 seconds when you meet people, if you're listening to them. So from there, it's really, I think my job is not to be a decision maker at all. It's to help people make a smart decision and informing them of the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and then making sure that they have the tools to make a proper decision. I never want people to go into a situation where they feel like I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, especially when the circumstances, the last few years, for example, the circumstances have dictated that you've got to go in, for example, if you're a purchaser and there are multiple people that have purchase agreements on said property, you've got to go in with your guns blazing, your best foot forward, and you can't come back a day later and go, gosh, I would have done this or I could have done that.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for that sometimes in transactions and when you're dealing with that, but the last few years that really hasn't been the case, so you've really had to put your foot forward. But educating people, most of the time people are comfortable with doing that because I've given them enough information, enough tools to make those decisions. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel like my job is.
And that's kind of a great segue to something I'd like to ask you about right now, which is what you're seeing, and I'd like to just briefly talk about like what are like 2 or 3 trends you're seeing in Michigan, and let's just talk our local area, where kind of our viewing area. What are some things that you're seeing, trends or things that have been happening for the last couple of years that are continuing today? What are a couple things?
A few things. So average market on time on the market. Homes now have increased. Back when the last 3 years, let's say starting in November, December or so of 2019, the market times were, if not a month, maybe a hair over, sometimes a hair under, depending upon the price range. And that was, and everybody knows what those experiences were like. Cash was king. A lot of people that had very high credit scores, a lot of money to put down, but they were going conventional. They didn't have, all the money to pay cash. A lot of people were losing out on that now on homes because of cash. Cash, you don't have to have an appraisal, even though people were starting to waive appraisals. So,
you don't have to have an appraisal?
Not with cash.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Not with a cash transaction.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can have one, but it's transactions unless
Right.
you make it contingent upon that appraisal,
Right.
which you wouldn't do because that's the
Right.
benefit of doing cash.
Right.
You waive those. Home inspections are vitally important. But
Right.
what I've seen is good homes in pretty much every market except for the very, very high ones, because there's a smaller amount of people, obviously, that can afford, say, over 700, 800, 900,000, a million, versus 300,000. What I've seen even in that 300,000 range is that homes that are ready, turnkey, so to speak, ready to move into, the updates have been done. Those have been moving fast, and those still have multiple offer situations. I'm actually closing on something last week that was very much that same thing. Other homes that need a little bit of work tend to stay on the market a little bit longer. We're seeing price reductions a lot more in the last 2-3 months than I've seen in the last 3 years because of that. I think, people got it in the tail end of thinking that their home was worth a lot more than it was because Mr. and Mrs. Smith down the street, received
Right.
X amount of money. Well, the market has changed. Interest rates have obviously made that slow down a little bit as well. Even though I think, though, if you look back in retrospect and if you go back to pre-COVID, interest rates were, 4.5, let's say. Now they're 6. So the difference in those rates are really not that much. Sure, it's money. Of course, it's money. But what the government did to reduce the interest rates because of COVID and people, panicking and no one knew what was going on. They had to jumpstart the economy. That was an anomaly. I mean, that happened because of our economy and what needed to jumpstart what was going on with COVID. Now you're seeing the back end of that, and I think the interest rates will settle down. The market has definitely settled down. We're not seeing anything in the future that shows that our home values are going to decrease. It's only happened a recession with homes in 2 years and 150 years. So 2007 and 8 and 6 were completely different. That was a financial disaster where your dog back in 2000 could have got a $200,000 loan.
Right.
That was a big problem I feel with the economy back then is they were doing balloons and arms and giving people mortgages at low interest rates, but they were qualifying at the highest amount that they could qualify for. And unfortunately, with 3-year arms, 5-year arms, balloons, 7 years, those interest rates adjust. And what happens is people then lose
the house.
Yeah, they lose the house because they can no longer afford it.
Right.
And also people, if they have secondary homes, that's the first thing they're going to let go. So, anyways, that's what we're seeing right now. I think, things are, settling down a bit, but people are still buying and selling.
Are people who are selling homes right now, are you seeing them just buying homes again in the area, or are they moving out of Michigan? What are you seeing in terms of the movement of people?
I've had some clients move out recently. I had one just last month I closed that she came in from Seattle. But I've had people, move out of town, one to Pennsylvania a few months ago.
Because of jobs and
and and other opportunities, not because per se they wanted to leave Michigan, but we used to deal with a lot of relocation when I was first in the business. I would say in the 90s and even early 2000s. There was a lot of relocation, And there still is, but
Not so much.
I don't deal with those so much anymore. They're still out there in a little bit, but not as much as there used to be.
What about in terms of things that people are looking for in homes? Has the trend changed, and are people looking for anything different than they were looking for in the past when it comes to homes, or not really?
Not really. I think we go in cycles in I think, and it's all dependent upon our economy. For example, a lot of people want to find homes they think that have primarily been done. Number one, if they don't have the wherewithal to be able to do those updates,
Right.
whether it be financially or just the know-how to do them. So homes that have those more updates are certainly more, I don't know, people want to buy them more than what others that maybe need quite a bit of fixing up. And that kind of walks hand in hand with the trades industry and trying to find somebody to come in to redo your kitchen. And that's a pretty decent sized job. And if it's anything smaller than that, it's going to take months and months probably to find somebody because there's just not enough tradespeople out there.
I've talked to people locally in the neighborhood in Birmingham, and they're like, yeah, it's taking me months just to get this person to my home to do, and everything's so strange now. Like,
yeah. I have a client that we were supposed to put her home up
around.
last Friday, and there were a couple of tradespeople that were supposed to come, and then they canceled. And it's hard to get people to come and to show up on a regular basis. It's really hard, and then to get the job done, or they'll start it and then it won't be done. So that's been really hard too. So that has kind of played into a little bit of why people are buying things that are new because of.
It's alarming if you can't get something done and like half done, and you're going into winter.
Yeah, yeah. Or patience is a virtue. I think that's what everybody needs to have as well. So.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for going over some of those trends that you're seeing right now. I also like to talk, because we only have a few minutes left, we'll talk a little bit about buying and selling. What's the biggest mistake you're seeing with people doing, and of course you're helping them with this, when it comes to buying homes? Like, what's the biggest mistake that you see overall when it comes to buying homes on the buyer side?
I think people overthink things. I think people... regardless of price range, you have to be realistic about what it is that you're buying. It's a lot of money, yes. I try to make sure that I educate people enough and about what it is that they're buying. I'm not a firm believer in going and finding one house and then going out and buying it. I'm a firm believer in going and looking at homes, and you wouldn't buy it in a million years. But if it's in the market that you're looking at, and if it's a competition, I think it's very helpful to go and take a look at that. It just builds credibility to what it is that you're doing, and knowledge. Knowledge is power. So if you have information in, this house might be something never in a million years you'd buy, but it helps you knowing what the price is and comparing others.
Gives your brain a lot of data.
It gives your brain a lot of a lot of. It's very, very helpful, I think, and it kind of settles down and confirms what decision that you're making, and hopefully it's a good one.
And how about on the sell side? What kind of mistakes are you, like, what's the biggest mistakes? We only have time for one.
Just because Mr. and Mrs. Jones got $5 million for their home doesn't mean you're going to. That seller and that buyer is unique to that situation.
Yeah, it's not a commodity.
I tell people this all the time. It's kind of funny, but selling real estate is like throwing bologna on a wall. You never know what's going to stick, because what stuck for your neighbor doesn't mean it's going to stick for you, because that was a completely different buyer. And there's no two of each of us in this world or on this planet. That's one of the things that I love about my job, is everybody is different. So we have to get over different obstacles depending upon where we're at, what the market's like, etc. So pricing too high, I think, has been an issue with some sellers. We read the information, but it's very important, I think, to adjust. And if the market is telling us something, then it's important to make those corrections. 99% of the time it's price, maybe it's something else, but listening to the feedback or what you're getting from agents that are on the ground every day with clients, going out and showing, and not only looking at your property, but looking at other properties and comparing them. So I think it's really important that us as agents and brokers share that information with other brokers about their experiences, because it's helpful to provide that information back to our clients.
I know you look at a lot of external factors when it comes into buying and selling and dealing with your clients, but do you do a lot of stuff off your gut?
Yes, I mean, naturally I have the best interest in mind for my clients, and that's just me personally. I can't go to bed with the feeling that I didn't give them all the information, my clients all the information, and was as helpful as I could be. And sometimes things work out fantastic, and sometimes they don't, but we're all an individual. So I think everyone has to be comfortable with the decision. I think it's vital that a seller and a buyer are comfortable with who they're working with.
Right,
As agents, we're all knowledgeable, at advertising, where all the properties go, and on the internet and everything else. This day and age is so different than it was when I got into the business.
It's rapport, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, there's so many ways to find
rapport.
I mean, you could fall out of a boat and easily you find all kinds of information on any home you want. But I think it's really,
go to the internet.
But I think it's really important to be comfortable in working with somebody. I treat people like people. I don't treat people like they're money. There's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that look at
and we all know when we're being treated that way.
Yeah, and you do, and then they're like they're a
not a
dollar
secret.
bill. They're not. I cherish the relationships that I make, and whether they be friends or almost, extended family, and I love it, and that's what makes me tick and get up every morning.
And I can tell you love what you do.
Yeah, I do.
And and after seeing you around town for many, many years, and just coming across this opportunity, I'm so glad we had the opportunity to talk to you and find out more about you and your background. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to ask you just one more question as we wrap up here. You're an entrepreneur. I mean, essentially, 100% commission your entire life. I mean, you have a very different life than most people out there with jobs, but it's exciting and it's interesting, and you're doing great things for people in the area and all over. What is your advice to entrepreneurs? Because you have been living this lifestyle for a long time.
My advice is the same advice that I give my kids, and my girls are 22 and 18, but I've given it to them for a while. Be happy. Be happy. Treat people with respect, do something that you love, and pursue it. And don't look at the financial end of it. Happiness can be defined in a lot of different ways. Financially for some people, but for others, it's a lot different. And if you're happy doing what you do, like I have done for 29 years, never worked a day in my life. Be yourself, be honest, be respectful of others. And follow your dreams.
All right, well said. Thank you so much for being a guest. Noel Heideman, associate broker and realtor. Thanks for being a guest.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.